Welcome to the Blue Heart Podcast. I'm your host and conversational guide, Lieutenant Joe Pangaro. This podcast is for you, the men and women of law enforcement, because ours is a noble profession, worthy of your heart, your passion, and your life. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter. Hey, everybody, Lieutenant Joe Pangaro here. You know, one of the things that we like to do here on our program is talk to interesting people that have done things in our profession that, one, we can all learn from. Number two, maybe we could find entertaining. You go out there and you look, and there's hundreds of thousands of us out there doing this work. And it all is very interesting. I did my time. I loved every minute of it. But today I got somebody that I think you're going to like. This is Detective Sergeant Nick Perna from Redwood, California. Right. So, yes, so everybody in the East Coast, when you're sitting here, shoveling for the next couple of weeks, you think about Nick out there in Redwood. So, Nick, how are you?
Good. How are you, Joe?
Very good. Hey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so where is Redwood in California? If I was to look at the state of California, where are you?
So Redwood City is about half an hour north of San Jose and almost half an hour north of San Francisco. So Bay Area, basically Northern California.
And that's Redwood City?
Yes.
Excellent. And how long you been there?
I've been there 22 years.
Wow, that's excellent. What kind of town is it? What kind of how many population, how many cops in your department, that kind of thing?
So medium-sized town. It's 86,000 people. Our department right now, I believe we're at 85 sworn. We're supposed to have, I think, around 97. I'm sure it's the same on the East Coast as it is out here. It's just hard getting cops right now. It's a great place to work. It's sort of a good mix where we have sort of a higher end area or higher income, if you will. And then there's a lower income area that, if you're a cop that wants to go out there and mix it up and find stuff to do, there's plenty to do here as well.
Right. That sounds a lot like the town I came from. $1 million houses on one side, rental areas, shops, stores, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And we got a couple of major highways running through it. So, we get a lot of dope coming and going from all the way from Mexico that comes through here.
Yep.
So tons of stuff to do if you want to go out and mix it up. But at the same time, a nice town to live in if you wanted to live in it. So
Sure. So I don't think any place is completely immune from crime, and the problems that come with that. We saw the other day. I don't know if you saw the officer down in Florida. She overdosed accidentally on fentanyl. She was exposed during a traffic stop. You have a lot of fentanyl out there.
Oh yeah, I think it's same everywhere. We got a ton of it. I mean, it's to the point where. And I'm guessing a lot of departments are doing this. We got policies in place where we used to do the field presumptive testing of the drugs, the little shake-up kits. Stop doing that, so there's no physical contact. Now we actually have a device now. I think it's called the True Narc, that you can just put it over any kind of substance and they'll give you a reading. But we're, I would say, probably once a month having someone overdose that's getting Narcan from our officers. We have a lot of repeat offenders that have come back to life 3, 4, 5 times. It's crazy.
I think that's could you imagine if we didn't have that Narcan right now with all of this fentanyl out there? 100,000 last year, it'd be 400,000, because you're right. People are repeat people. They get knocked down. We bring them back up and they go back down again 3 weeks later,
Yeah.
So when you're talking about what's this device, because I think there's probably a lot of agencies out there that are trying to toy around with. Maybe they don't deal with a lot of fentanyl. They know it's out there, but it's not constantly on top of them. What's this thing called, and how does it work? So if I stop somebody and they got, like that officer had a dollar bill with some powder in it, how would this thing work?
So just a caveat, I'm not an expert on it, but it's called True Narc. It's TRUNARC, I believe, is the brand name. In essence, you get a substance, whatever it is. You don't know what it is. Maybe it's cocaine, maybe it's fentanyl, maybe it's heroin. You bring this electronic device out. Somehow it's able to scan it, and it can determine pretty accurately what it is. And really, we got it, like I said, as a response to fentanyl. But it's great. We have a relationship with our DA's office too, where they'll accept a True Narc analysis the same as they used to accept like a presumptive test analysis. So we test it. True Narc says it's this. We keep usually about half a dozen people trained up on it specifically so they can testify in court if need be. So Great little asset to have.
How big of a device is it? Is it?
It's small. It's handheld. Probably the only downside is a little pricey. I want to say we spent somewhere between 25 and 30 grand for it.
Wow.
One, you look at the safety thing, and two, there was some cost offset too of not having to buy presumptive tests too. So
yeah, well, and how much you going to pay if an officer goes down and dies, right?
Right.
Over this
Exactly.
crap. So I think there's some essential equipment we need as the world changes. This is something we certainly need. So I understand also you're an Army veteran.
Yes, I spent right out of college. I did 3 years active duty as a paratrooper in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I spent another 10 years or so in the National Guard and Army Reserves. Went to Iraq in 2003 and got out around 2006.
Outstanding. Well, thanks for your service. Which we're service in law enforcement, but the military is a special thing. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
All right, so one of the things I think that brings us together here is that we are both authors for Blue 360 Media. And,
Yes.
We like to write down some of the things we learn, the things that we do, and try and help other people. What's a publication you have out there from Blue 360?
So right now, Joe, I've got the one book. It's Street Crimes Investigations Handbook. And I guess the background, it was kind of a labor of love for me. I've spent the bulk of my career working in, I think I mentioned already, working street level dope cases, gang investigations, and then all the human trafficking stuff like massage parlors, hotel ops, that kind of stuff. We have a unit here in Redwood City, our street crimes team, and I did 2 tours as a detective, and then I actually got to come back later and supervise it. So what I did is I tried to collate everything I learned in the time I spent on that team and put it into one book. And my thought behind it was there's classes on all those things. You can find a good street level dope class. You could probably find a good gang investigations class. You can find a good human trafficking class, but I didn't know of anywhere that had really put all those things together. So my book is almost like Street Crimes for Dummies. I couldn't use that title, obviously, because of copyright issues.
Right.
That was the working one, but I wanted to make something that was kind of short, interesting, digestible, and then on top of that, I tried to make it scalable. So, like, if you're a cop in a department with 20 cops and it's just you and your beat partner at night and you're looking to go try to arrest a pimp or take off a drug dealer, you can do it with some of the techniques and tactics I put in the book. If you happen to be on a specialty team, like a narcotics team or a vice team or a gang suppression team, same thing. You can pull some of the stuff that's in there and try to either do an investigation or do a sting operation. Right. And I try to take it from beginning to end, where I discuss how to do an investigation and how to do a gang predicate, how to do a search warrant for narcotics, and then how to testify on it too.
Sounds pretty all encompassing. So it sounds like if you're a new officer out there, you want to be a detective, you want to be better at what you do, this is the book to get. And it's Street Crimes Investigations Handbook.
Yes.
By Detective Sergeant Nick Perna, and that you can get that at Blue 360 Media. Anyplace else?
Yeah, Blue 360 Media and Amazon as well. When they have
Amazon. Okay, well that sounds like it's if you think about it, I say if you got a family member who's in law enforcement, or if you want to be in law enforcement, and you want to get better, look at Blue 360. They have a ton of titles, and this looks like the perfect thing. I mean, street crimes is where most of us are going to start once we get out of patrol, right? If you get an opportunity to do something, hey, go work with the narco unit, go work with the prostitution unit. This book sounds like it's got a lot of, when you say techniques, things in there I can actually learn and then go do so I can do a better job.
That's exactly it, Joe. And I tried to make it where, again, I wanted to make it stuff that's applicable to what we do on the street, but also fun. Like there's operations in there, like just for example, in the gang section of the book, I talk about anti-graffiti, anti-tagging operations, and how we would go out sometimes and either sit on a place where gangsters were tagging up and wait for another crew to come in and tag on top of that, or even proactively, we would go tag a wall up with our own graffiti to make it look like we're from one gang, knowing it's going to draw the attention of another gang to try to put those good gang cases on them.
Now, when you did that, did you make everybody wear a red or a blue bandana or something like that? You say, "Hey,
Yeah,
fellas,
yeah.
we're going to do
We
that."
made sure we did it like in the wee hours of the night, and no one saw us doing it because I'd have a lot of explaining to do to my admin if I got a guy shot in a gang war. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
thought avoid
So Nick, with all of this going on out there, it sounds like you have quite a bit of experience. And when we were talking earlier, pre-interview, your community is very nice, but there's also a lot of tough areas. If a cop wants to be busy, you can be. What's one of your favorite cases you've ever worked?
Let's see. Favorite cases. I can think of one where actually as a supervisor, that was a pretty good case. We had a home invasion here, and this shows how technology really drives things these days. This was probably about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Five guys went into a house, stole a bunch of cash, a bunch of jewelry, high end stuff. Obviously, some kind of inside job, but we couldn't make the connection as to how. We ended up launching this major investigation to try to track these guys down. And kind of make a long story short, we realized they had dumped some items, and some of that stuff actually made it to the local dump here. So I had guys out there in Tyvek suits fishing through garbage, and they located a handgun magazine. They located a hoodie. We sent that stuff for DNA analysis. We did looked into their phones just to see what phones were in that area that time of night. Narrow that down to phones that don't match the area code from there. Ended up being that we were able to figure out that some crew from Sacramento, which for the folks who aren't out here, it's about 3 hours east of here, came down and did this whole thing, and they were able to make the whole case based off of where the phones were pinging off the cell towers, where their cars went through areas where we had different types of camera systems. Crazy, almost circumstantial, but good evidence that at the end of this whole thing, 5 suspects identified. We end up in Sacramento with, I think it was 6 SWAT teams hitting 5 different locations. End up getting all sorts of extra stuff not related to our crimes, stolen cars and guns and all kinds of crazy
Outstanding.
stuff. But
Sounds great. That sounds,
it
and
was
when I hear a story like that, it's I remember being a young cop and watching the detectives do things and the strike force coming into town and
yeah,
saying, "Man, I wish I could do that." So I can imagine if there's young cops out there listening to us and they hear that, this is the thing to aspire to. Because
yeah,
I was recently in New York City for an event that they were doing there, and one of the commissioners, the NYPD old time commissioners, was there, and he's talking about this guy that shot some people on one of the subways recently, and how their tech team followed this person by cameras all over the city, from ring cameras to store cameras, till
yeah.
they put him right in his house. And you say, how can you do that? Well, if you want to be a detective, you want to be a cop, that's what you do. Sounds just like what you did with all of that. You end up with all those people and search warrants, and amazing.
Yeah, I think too, and I'm sure you've seen this over the years, is uh, technology now is probably 80-90% of what we do. Like, for example, on that street crimes team that we have here, it used to be that, like, when I was first on the team, gosh, 15, 16 years ago, we spent probably 3/4 of the time on the street, going out there, working on informants, doing suppression stuff, and maybe 30% of the time back here. Now it's almost completely flip flop. These guys are back here all the time, working up search warrants, getting into phones, getting into social media.
Yeah.
I mean, you can solve crime without ever leaving your office these days, which is such a change.
It's a
And
digital world.
yeah, and it's hard sometimes for dinosaurs like me sometimes to wrap my head around it a little bit, but that's the way it is, and we embrace it. So
That's outstanding. Well, Nick, it's very nice to meet you. And we'll be doing I was telling you, we're going to be doing a segment here for the show. It's called Tales from the Road. And
okay,
I'm sure you have some interesting stories we would like to hear about. So I'll have you back on for that. But I just want to plug the book one more time. It's the Street Crimes Investigation Handbook from Detective Sergeant Nick Perna, Perna, and you get that on Blue 360 Media, or you can go to Amazon, like the rest of the world, and see if you can buy it there. Nick, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate it too.
Be safe, brother.
All right, you too.
Lieutenant Joe and the Blue Heart Podcast Network would like to thank our sponsors. Blue 360 Media. You can find them at www.blue360media.com. and Medical Essential Diagnostics. You can find them at www.med-nj.com. We would also like to thank the Blue Heart Network production team, led by Senior Executive Director Todd Pangaro. Be careful out there. Do what's right.